can you make money selling beats in 2023? Jumping right into it, because this is actually a pretty complicated question and even more of a complicated answer. Short answer, technically, yes, right? There's nothing stopping you from, like, say, making a beat, selling it to your friend for X amount of money. So yeah, you can make money selling beats. Long answer though, is it, let's say, a viable career path, for example? Is it something you can make a lot of money? In my opinion, and I gotta be honest, not really. Now, I wanna stress, this is a very technical question, and the term selling beats is also a bit of an ambiguous phrase, right? Do you mean making tracks, making records for other people? Do I mean producing for other people? Do I mean making songs and licensing them in terms of, like, say, like sync licensing and everything? What I'm talking about in this specific video is the specific case of you making a beat and sending it or giving it to somebody, letting them use it, and typically, in most situations, it's usually in the hip-hop world where you make a beat, you sell it or give it to an artist, however you want to distribute it. They then use that beat and they, like, say, rap over it or spit over it, put bars on top of it. Then, like, say, they send it to an engineer, or, like, say, they themselves mix it and master it. That is what I'm talking about in this case. And the truth is, and I just gotta be honest, and again, this is not just for hip-hop, I'll say for any genre, pop, EDM, rock, whatever, I don't think that kind of business model is as good, especially this year. Now, one thing I want to start off by saying, which is very important, because I have gotten this question a lot, is DistroKid good for selling beats? Or, to back up, is any music distributor good for selling beats? Meaning, should I, like, say, if I just want to make beats, that's my passion, should I make a bunch of beats, upload them to put them on all the music platforms like Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, RDO, Deezer, etc.? Should I do that on CD Baby, TuneCore, and DistroKid, and then use those platforms to promote myself to kind of get my beats out there? The answer is no. The reason why is once you upload something on DistroKid, CD Baby, TuneCore, etc., and we get it on those platforms, it gets very tricky to take that down. Like, say, if you want it to be like a one-time license thing or whatever, there's different ways to sell beats. But overall, I think it just adds a lot of complicated stuff into the mess, for lack of a better phrase. And this becomes a big thing I know for a lot of beat makers in terms of marketing. I have friends who, like, say, created websites. They made a bunch of beats, and some of them are pretty good, and they put them online saying, hey, buy my beat if you want the full rights to it, where you buy the beat, I then take it down. So it's like a one-time purchase. You're the only one in the world that can never have this beat. It's only $300, $400. And they tried doing it, and the unfortunate thing is it didn't really go anywhere. You do need a lot of marketing and promotion to really get your beats out there, but overall, at the end of the day, and again, there's so many different ways I could kind of tackle this video, but I want it to be very straightforward as best I can, because there are a lot of aspects to this. Overall, the problem exists with this. I think a lot of beat makers think, oh, I'm going to make this great beat, or a lot of great beats, create a catalog, and try to sell it to different artists so they can buy them and use them. The problem is this. In this day and age, in 2023, it is unbelievably easy to make a beat. Every hip-hop artist, for example, that I personally know, personally know as hip-hop artists, that is their life and their career, they're rappers and everything, they make all their own beats. They make all of them, because it's super easy now to do. Now, let's say this video was 10 years ago. Let's say this was in, just blanked out, 2013? Wow, pretty crazy. 2012, let's say 2013, in case you're curious. I started actually heavily producing in 2012. I am a former classical pianist, then jazz saxophonist, but I started in terms of actually, like, making beats and studying production aggressively in 2012. So 10 or 11 years ago, right? If, like, say I made this video back then, my answer probably would have been a lot different, because even back in the day, even just 10 years ago, only a decade ago, it was a bit harder to make beats. Finding, like, say, royalty-free samples was a lot trickier. The amount of plugins really wasn't there. Production wasn't really as popular. Like, it was kind of in the beginning stage of EDM blowing up. And I do say, I may be biased on this, I feel like as a result of EDM blowing up, especially like Skrillex and dubstep blowing up, it kind of, I think, turned on a lot of musicians to be like, I never really cared about production. I always want to sing or play guitar, which is kind of the cliche things, or play piano. I never really thought about dabbling in production. I feel like that kind of blew up production, right? And as a result of that, as music production now being a very viable career, like back in the day, no one really even understood production. Now a lot of people do. Now it's very easy to make a beat because a lot of people are into producing. There are a bajillion YouTube videos. I made a bunch of YouTube videos you can watch for free. There are a bunch of them online. In addition, you can pay $9 or $10 a month for something like Splice Sounds, And I'm not exaggerating. If you just download a bunch of samples on Splice, you can make a quick hip hop beat in literally, I think, less than 30 seconds. Maybe even quicker. Maybe I'll do a video about that in the future of like, what's the quickest amount of time I can make a beat in using Splice. But that just shows that even if, let's say, you're a beginning hip hop artist, you don't know anything about production or music theory, you can quickly make a beat. 10 years ago, not as much. So now the need for someone to make a beat, in my opinion, is just really not as necessary. And I hate to say, you might just be wasting your time. Like I said, all my friends that I know personally who are hip hop artists, they all make their own beats. They all spit over them. The only thing they do hire in terms of like outsourcing, if that's the right phrase, or hiring someone else is an engineer. Engineering mainly focusing on the aspects of mixing and mastering. They may lightly mix their own tracks, maybe even mess around with the master, but typically they'll be like, you know what? I know my thing. I know I can make beats. I can arrange those beats. I can spit the bars I need to spit, put everything together, but then I send it off to somebody to mix it and master it. And I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you're not really in the, depends upon the person, but you're probably not in the mindset of wanting to be an engineer in terms of mixing and mastering. You just want to make beats. So this brings up the question then, if you're watching, like, oh shoot, well, I'm making a bunch of beats. I want to make money doing it. This is my passion. How do I make money? Could be a multi-series video, probably an entire online course, like if I ever wanted to do that. So there's a lot to this. So I do want to kind of skim the iceberg here. A lot of stuff going on. But one big thing a lot of people do when it comes to making beats is something called sync licensing. So they make their own tracks as an actual tracks they release. So, I don't know, I'm just gonna make something up. I'm horrible at picking out song names. I'll just call it like Watch. I know probably like say like Wristwatch. Like say make a song called Wristwatch by Joe Schmo. You release it as an actual song. So it's a beat, and like say it's an upbeat cinematic orchestral beat, for example, called Wristwatch, probably horrible name, by Joe Schmo. Then you do what's called sync licensing, where you say to a commercial, a TV show, a movie, video games, any kind of form of media, and you say, hey, you can use my song, my beat, as background music in your commercial, or you can use it as the background music for your TV show, or whatever. So sync licensing is a very viable way to make a lot of money. Essentially, if you think about just making beats, you make a song, you then can license it out using sync licensing. The second thing, though, and that's probably, in my opinion, one of the most common, but the second one, though, which in my opinion can be a bit trickier or easier depending on the person, and this to me is, I think, the best way to really make money in 2023, quote unquote, making beats. And I want to think of the best way to word this. And that is not necessarily to make a beat to then send out to an artist and then that's it. You're like, all right, you give me $300, I give you the beat, we're done. The best way to do it is to really work with an artist. And what I mean is, let's say contacting your favorite artist. I know this is a lot easier said than done, right? Because a lot of people are trying to do this. But the day and age, if you're just making beats and just selling them, even if you don't know people, like I know back in the day, there used to be a lot of sites. They're still common now, but not as common, where you could literally like buy a beat, like almost like you're buying something on Amazon with a cart. You don't even have to know the person that's buying your beat. You just don't even see them. It's out of sight, out of mind. What I suggest doing instead is contacting an artist personally and saying, hey, I have this beat. I'd love for you to hear it. I'd love to work on a record with you, whether it's me just making a beat for you, etc., etc. I think that's really the best way to get involved. Like, let's say you're like, look, Mark, I don't want to necessarily be a hip hop artist or an EDM artist or whatever. I just like making beats for other artists to use for their music. Like, that is my passion. That's my goal. My best suggestion, and again, a lot easier said than done, is to make beats and send it off to them. But remember, for these artists, they do want to hear really, really good beats. And for a lot of artists too, they might say, hey, well, why pay this Joe Schmo guy making beats when I can just go on Splice and make a beat in 30 seconds? Now, to beginning artists, and let's be honest, to a beginning artist, they might not know exactly how easy it is. So the barrier to entry is so tricky for them that they may be like, you know what? I still have to download Ableton or FL Studio or Logic. I still have to sign up with Splice. I still don't even know how to download the sample and then bring it into the software and then put everything together. Like, to people who produce a lot, it could take you 20, 30 seconds. But to a beginning person, they might not know as well. But even still, I think just selling beats is not really what it used to be. And that's why I suggest, and this is probably like more of a semantics thing, to not work, I don't say, you probably get what I'm saying, especially now that I've explained it more in detail. I don't suggest, if you want to make beats, to work for an artist, work with an artist, right? again, probably semantics. And what I mean, don't just make beats to send off, because I think that industry, I'm not gonna lie, I think especially in the years to come, is gonna die off. Hate to say it, especially with AI, and not only AI generated art, but now like the chat GPT and AI generated stuff. It's inevitable we're gonna have AI generated beats, which is gonna make this industry even die off super quick in terms of making beats. And that's what I suggest, is that to work with an artist, not for one. Don't just send it off and be like, oh, cool, you can buy it $300. I never see you again, blah, blah. Contact your favorite artist. Really try to do whatever you can. So that way you're not necessarily selling them a beat, even though by definition you are. But in terms of the general phrasing of it, you're not selling them a beat. You're creating a beat for them to use, and you can kind of go back and forth where like, say, they even send you bars back, and then you're like, oh, okay, you did this and this here. I'm going to remove this part of the beat or add something in because you did this one thing with your vocals, blah, blah, blah. Again, whole other aspect and whole other subject for a whole other video. But overall, and I want to be blunt, because I get a lot of comments and questions on this channel, especially about selling beats. A lot of people want to do that because you're like, hey, I'm just going to make a bunch of beats, put them online, sell each one for $300, make a ton of money. Got to be blunt, not the case anymore. It still could be possible. I will say that, but it's a lot harder now, a lot more difficult, a lot more competition. And for a lot of artists who are coming about now, they say, why spend $300 when I can easily make a beat on my own, way quicker, way easier, way more convenient, way cheaper, and I also have the full creative control over everything. Like, I know one of my friends actually bought a beat recently. This is like, I think like last year. He has no idea what he's doing, and he's like, look, I'm just gonna buy a beat. He bought one for, I can't remember how much it was. It was like a good amount of money. And I'm like, oh, this sounds good, but like, I think I'd make that snare quieter. That snare is kind of loud. He goes, oh, I can't do anything with that snare. I only got the beat. I didn't get like the stems. And I'm like, oh man, well, you spent $100 for this. Meanwhile, and I haven't even mentioned this yet, you can quickly go on like YouTube or Google and search free hip hop beat and get a royalty free hip hop beat that you spend no money for. So it's like, on top of all that, it's like if you can get a beat that has, no licensing issues whatsoever, where you can just spit over it completely, why even think about buying a beat? Like, again, I know a lot to this video and a lot of tricky things. I really want to kind of skim the iceberg here and kind of I've been doing these a lot, these kind of like fireside chat type videos. But overall, I gotta say, if you want to make beats, if this is your passion, this is your goal, again, like I said, just contact artists. See if there's a way you can work with them, just not directly for them.